Oh boy, there we go. There's our faces. Hello everybody. Welcome back. It's Wireheads. We are a Cyberpunk Red podcast where we talk about mostly Cyberpunk Red. You might be looking at the screen right now, some of you, and saying, Emmerron, Diamond, there should be three of you. You said you had an interview this week. We thought we did. Something happened. We aren't sure what, but things fell through. So we are, as we do, we're doing it live. We are reclaiming our podcast to the usual format for this week. And we will be back with Winter J hopefully sometime in the next couple weeks. We just need to figure it out exactly when she's available. So we'll be in touch with her and Rob Barefoot to get that rescheduled, so we can do that as soon as possible. For those of you who maybe have not watched this podcast or listened to us before, though, my name is Emmerron. I do some content creation stuff over here. A lot of my more recent forays have been into StartPlaying, so that is primarily where you'll see me and come across me. Joining me as always is my co-host.
Hi everybody, I'm Diamond Dust. I do a lot of stuff over here on Twitch. Still working on YouTube. Been kind of in the midst of recovery at the moment after an incident at Gen Con. But also you will find me on StartPlaying as a professional GM as well. By the way, unfortunately my Monday game had to pause because we don't have enough players, so come check me out.
Get on it. Yeah, if you want to play with a heavily experienced GM. We were just comparing the numbers with a couple other people earlier today, and Diamond has, like, because I thought, I lowball my numbers usually. I thought I'm between 150 and 200 games probably of Cyberpunk Red since I've started GMing, and then Diamond comes and she's like, well, I know I've done like 500, and I'm like,
I'm not there yet. I am on track by the 5th anniversary of Cyberpunk Red. I will have ran 500 sessions.
But if you're on track, that means right now you're at like what, 450-ish?
Roughly.
Yeah, so that I'm probably a little closer to where you are in that then, because I'm like, I've been running since the system was in Jumpstart Kit mode. So I know I've got more games under my belt than 200 if you're at 450.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking back on every solo game I've ran, every like private campaign I've ran, every streamed campaign I've done. Yeah, and it's like I'm like, I'm counting sessions. It's like I'm around 450 here.
Sure. Well, and that's where I'm like, I know I've done 5 separate campaigns now, and I know that each of those had at least 25 sessions in them. The 2 I've streamed definitely were 26 each. And each of the 3 before that were definitely around that same length. So that's where I'm like, okay, well, I've done like 125 there between those alone. But then, when you start adding StartPlaying and stuff, I'm like, I might be closer to 300. I'm probably around 300. And that doesn't include all the games that I have run that are not Cyberpunk. Or are, where I've been a player or any of that too. And there's plenty of that too. So like, it's kind of wild. So hold on. Emmerron has you beaten dog games. I'm curious what you mean by dog games. Like, I guess like, if we're counting like every one of Diamonds is 7 for me or something like that. But no, I think, Diamond just has me straight beat. And that's fine. She's been doing StartPlaying, I think, a little longer than I have. So it would make sense that she's done
a couple years now. Yeah, talked with my Wednesday crew, and we just passed 2 years on StartPlaying for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I've been like going at it pretty hard now for a little over a year. So like that would make sense that you've got nearly double the time on me there. So yeah, like I'm a guy who likes his numbers, so it made me fascinated to realize we've both been in it for that long. So today, being that Winter J, for whatever reason, is not here, we have decided to reclaim our time because our last episode, and in the community at large, I think has echoed this sentiment. It's not just our corner of it, but I think the broader Cyberpunk Red community, I've definitely seen other people stating it's a couple of things, right? There was some generalized disappointment, not just for Artel, but other companies as well at Gen Con this year for not having made releases aligned like they normally would. That obviously is just I've said this a few times in comments and stuff, but I'll reiterate it here. This is just a symptom of the broader market for TTRPGs being a chaotic thing right now. If you want physical printings of anything, it's like that much harder to do that right now, between needing to source the raw material to do it, source the printer to do it, ship it, like depending on how your historical supply chain is set up for that. Obviously, that's completely chaotic right now with what is going on with tariffs and stuff. And then you layer on top of that, there's been some very big things in the tabletop industry that, while we mostly focus on Artel Saurian's stuff, and they are certainly not affected by this, others have been by the collapse of Diamond Publishing, Diamond Publishing or Diamond Distribution.
Diamond Distribution.
Distribution, yeah. Thank you. Which is a group that, for those of you who are unaware, have historically, basically, producers of games go and they consign their games through Diamond as a distributor. And one of the bigger ones that had this and publicized this as it was happening in the last handful of months was Green Ronin Publishing. And they had it happen where Diamond essentially, this is the Cliff Notes, so feel free to, do research on this, listen to other voices than ours, because I will give you a very Cliff Noted version here, but please.
I want to clarify, I am not associated with Diamond Distribution. I remember rolling up into the admin chat of our town, just being like, yeah, Diamond went broke, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I declared bankruptcy when?
Yeah, exactly. So Diamond, that let's start with that then, yeah. So Diamond Distribution declared bankruptcy a few months back. I think this was in like June, that they declared bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And when they did, every publisher that had consignment stock with them was notified essentially that Diamond is essentially claiming their inventory as their own, essentially. Again, this is Cliff Notes. This is all, as far as I've heard it, and therefore is alleged. No one please sue us. We don't have the money for that. You won't get much out of us, I promise. But allegedly, what has happened is Diamond claimed that those... Whoop. Hello.
What?
Why did my face go?
I don't know.
That's different.
Now your face is very tiny. Oh, there you're back.
Yeah, I know. For some reason, Twitch decided to mute my camera. That was fun. Bottom line here, Diamond allegedly claimed that those inventories that were being consigned through them by these other publishers were theirs. And therefore, in bankruptcy filings, they would effectively not be paying the publishers that had done this through them a dime. They were going to use that to pay out whatever other creditors or, obligations that they had. Obviously, this did not sit well with those publishers. So those publishers are, as far as I'm aware now, I know Green Ronin, I believe, said that they are suing them over this. And there are several others that I believe are joining that suit as a class action, because it is a problem. Generally, it is a problem. And again, this is the very summarized version of this. Green Ronin, I believe, did a video about this that was far more descriptive and insightful. I know there's several other creators who have a little more research they've done into it. All this to say, this is why Gen Con was probably less than what some people have thought it should be this year in terms of new releases. And there is Roll for Combat's doing as well. Yeah, like there's a ton of creators in that space that are very much gonna be running it that way, right? Like they're just not gonna sit there and take it on the nose that they're losing all their inventory and all the money that they should be earning through that consignment. That's not gonna work at all. So again, just wanted to clarify that up front here, because the next two things are really our topics for today. So first, for my half of the episode, which is why I'm talking so much right now, as opposed to me every other day of the week where I don't talk at all, just ask Diamond, she lives with me. We are going to be talking about solo modes, and why I think the upcoming one for Red is going to be a really good idea, why it's going to be really, really important. Because I know there's been this weird sort of sentiment that I've seen from parts of the community that it's not worth being excited over it. And I think that is like, I get where it comes from, because I know a lot of us are all well established. We have our own gaming groups. We have our own, we've got our own thing that lets us play the game, right? We've got either a gaming group in physical space, or we have a digital one online, or like people out there who run games like Diamond and I do professionally. You've bought a seat from one of us and you're playing the game with us. So like, why would we be excited about solo modes when this might be cutting into our profit margin, I suppose you could say. And I guess to kick it off from my end of things, I like when new people find the game and when they can be brought into it with low friction. I think that is important. And I also think that the way things are right now, there aren't a lot of good low-level entry points for one or two people who are interested in this game to really engage with it and be part of it, unless they want to put a ton of footwork into joining an online group or something, or pay for the privilege to do that. And this is an avenue by which they can onboard. So that's kind of my big reason why. And we'll get more into kind of why I think that in a moment. But Diamond, I'm curious, do you have anything that you want to say on that front as to why maybe like you're excited about this, that's different from me, or that's in addition to me?
So, like you said, a low friction point of entry, and like something I've always advocated for on my channel is, what is the cost of entry to getting into the game? Mm-hmm. And now that we brought up single player mode, I've actually thought about this. That, cost of entry doesn't just mean like how much it costs to get the book, but how much it takes to get into the game.
Right.
And, perhaps for some people, driving, 1 hour both ways to go join that weekly Cyberpunk game or whatever other game is out there just might not be feasible. Mm-hmm. So, this is something I've thought about, is just like for those that don't have like a local group yet but still want to try Cyberpunk, I think this is fantastic. But what I also appreciate though is the fact that, and like it's mentioned in here, you still need the core rulebook. Mm-hmm. So you still have you still are jumping into the game, and that core rulebook is still going to mean something when you even when you pick up single player mode. Right.
Like and I think you need it in a big way because you have to jump in with both feet, right? You need all of the rules, not just those. And I'm sure you could feasibly get a taste of things through things like easy mode. if you wanted to run it alongside easy mode. But again, we don't know what solo mode is going to truly look like in its entirety. We just know that it's being designed to work with the core rules that we have already. But so this comes into then the part of this where why I'm excited about this, right? Dragonbane is a game that I've talked about before. I've streamed it before. There are videos of it on my channel, and one of those is me going through the solo mode in that game and trying it out and seeing how it played and what I thought about it. And I had a lot of fun doing that. I loved the solo mode. I thought that that was really a really interesting way to engage with the game. And I think that looking at the solo mode as a way to play the game, certainly that's how it's designed, I think, you know, for a lot of the cases there. But you can also look at it, if you're a GM especially, you can use it as a world building tool. Because there's a lot of ways that you can interact with that and kind of build out a framework in Dragonbanes that you could, in theory, work into a full adventure, or structure your thinking on like how you want to phase a dungeon maybe that you're working on for that game. So it will largely depend on if Reds works similarly, but I'm thinking that it probably will be closer than it isn't, right? It'll look more like it than it won't. And from that angle, I'm looking forward to seeing what the supplement offers to non-solo players and play groups, in addition to those who are using it as a replacement for a game master at their table. Because I don't know, Diamond, when you've been experimenting with other games that maybe have a solo mode or something akin to it, how useful have you found those supplements when you've encountered them?
Now, I suppose we need to clarify, is this like official solo modes that we're talking, or are we talking fan-built ones?
Either one, honestly, because ultimately we know Red solo mode is being built by someone who has done a bunch of those sort of hack solo modes in the past for other systems. I don't know how many of those have been like official releases like Red's is, versus just something done as like a homebrew or third-party add-on to those systems.
Yeah, and when I'm talking like fan, I don't mean like through like a third party group. I'm talking like, you know, someone has a Google Drive sheet and this is like how this works.
Sure. I still think that's valuable.
That's kind of where I was pointing towards.
Yeah.
I have found that when the game designers themselves, or like I had a chance to dabble into a couple of solo play games, and I'm trying to remember if it was PAX U or Gen Con last year where I saw these. But they were very smooth because very much the game designer had consulted with other game designers to produce that solo mode. And it creates it does create a very smooth form of play. And I've seen some third party supplements that work just as well. And I've also seen some fan hacks. It's hit and miss, but there are attempts. And I do feel that with solo modes, they do a great job of being able to get you into the game and experiencing the way the game plays. But there is something about solo modes I understand that some people aren't excited about, because when it comes to TTRPGs, usually you associate it with having that party that you run with.
Right.
So that is something that I will say that I understand from those that might not be excited about solo modes or single player modes, that you know, having the party is important.
Yeah, and
So
obviously there's that interplay that you get in a TTRPG, right? Where it's like, I do X, you do Y, and we have there's that collaboration. Like we've talked about this before, especially with other games. And I know, like, I just recorded my review for Daggerheart like a night or two ago, and I talk a lot about it there. That collaboration is like a big part of why I think that game is so special. But I think that solo RPGs, you just have to approach it from a very different mindset, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just is, you aren't relying on other people, you're relying on your own creativity at that point. It's almost like there's a solo RPG that I've wanted to check out for a minute now, and by a minute I mean quite literally like the last handful of years, called Chasing Time, and it's a journaling RPG, but it's entirely solo. And I wanted to see what that's like, versus some of the other RPGs I've played that are very like active, very like we're out there, we're doing things, we're trying to accomplish an end goal. I want to see what that's like, just because it is such a novel, different kind of thing. Yeah, I think that just solo RPGs, you just approach it knowing, obviously, that you're not having the collaborative elements that you normally would. Those are usually replaced with chaos tables and things like that, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so there is some of that like happenstantial, like things will happen to you that you didn't plan for. It just governed differently. It's brought about in different ways, that normal group play would kind of naturally introduce into the system without the need for tables and rolling on things and all that sort of stuff. Let's see. Wonder if solo mode will have a random chance of last minute game cancellation. We call that being burned out. It's the same reason you sit down to your computer at night and try to boot up a game and then think, but do I want to really do I want to? And then you just kind of don't. That's what that looks like. But yeah, no, I think ultimately that's kind of why I'm very excited about just Cyberpunk Red having his solo mode, because it is such a good kind of storytelling aid, in terms of getting your brain going. And if you are looking for something to create like a scream sheet about or something, you could run a solo mode for yourself as the GM. And this does two things for you. One, you're playing now technically, so you're not a forever GM anymore. For all my GMs out there, you could play solo and you're technically a player. So the joking aside on that, though, by doing that, you could cultivate the reason why your party's going to go into something and have a pretty like well-built idea and thinking about like, okay, what is going on? Why is it going on? What are the motivations? Because you've already just simulated all of that for yourself in a solo session. And that, I think, could be very useful.
Forever GM karmic balance is important. Yep.
Forever GM karmic
Thanks,
balance.
What? I also when I look at like solo mode though, one of the other things that I do find important with this is this can also just be to a degree an accessibility tool as well.
Yes, very much so.
Especially for like, if you happen to get cooped up and you really can't go out and partake in TTRPGs in the traditional sense. Of course, yes, you could do online, but if you don't have an online group, you have this as well. Especially, think about having this during the time of the pandemic.
Yes.
Ooh, would have been handy.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been real handy.
Or when someone, totally hypothetically speaking, right? Someone is cooped up in a hospital bed after getting their gallbladder removed at a major gaming convention.
Put it back. Put it back. If you do not understand the reference, please go to memes. It's somewhere in there.
Yeah.
People have been sending me that damn video.
I was the first as far as I'm aware, though. And that makes me really happy. That is exactly the sort of thing that I will race to be first for. I think that was so funny.
And I guess also one of the other things that that I'm thinking with single player mode is it's just like, are you controlling one character, or are you controlling a whole party? And that's a great question.
That's another fair question. Yeah, I know in the solo modes that I've seen, typically you're one person, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's how it'll be for Cyberpunk.
Can you have your JRPG moment in the Cyberpunk RPG?
I mean, that's where I would tell you, go to Fabula Ultima. And I believe Fabula Ultima does, it does actually. Someone made a solo mode for it. So what you do is you get the Fabula Ultima core rulebook, you get the Techno Fantasy Atlas, and then you can play a solo version of that. And there's your solo JRPG Cyberpunk. Voila. It's beautiful.
Solo modes are good for duos if you don't want to do one GM, one player. Yeah, this is true.
It's also true. Yeah. And actually, me and Connor have done that for Dragonbane before. Where that was actually the way we wanted to introduce ourselves to it, was by doing a solo mode together. And we've gathered to do it a couple times now. And every time we think it's a blast, because the two of us are then collaborating and just coming to agreement on as co-GMs almost of this scenario while also playing. It's a really unique experience that I feel like players who have not tried a game in a solo mode capacity before just don't really understand or appreciate. And that's just because you haven't tried. And this would be me telling you, if you have the option or opportunity to go out there and try a solo version of your favorite RPG through either someone having hacked it for the system, or maybe it does have an official solo mode release like Dragonbane does. Both are good ways to try it. Because Dragonbane, if you bought the core rules for it, you have the solo mode. It's packaged in there. I think it's called Into Deepfall Breach is the name of it. So if you have Dragonbane, have not looked at Deepfall Breach and all of that stuff, this is a great way for you to kind of see what a solo mode has to offer without buying anything extra if you already have that game. And it is a great game, so I highly recommend getting it if you're into fantasy RPGs. Let's see. Instead of a solo version, has there ever been a GM replacement or allowed two players without a GM? So a lot of solo modes, PW, actually do allow for that. Kind of like what Kay or Valkyrie just mentioned, where a lot of that boils into dual play, solo play. There are some people I know that more recently, and I don't agree with doing this, by the way. Some people have tried to get AI algorithms like ChatGPT to stand in as a GM for them. It's not good. Don't do it. I promise you it's not good. You will not have an appreciation for the game the same way a properly written and engineered solo mode runs. It will not play well that way. But yeah, solo modes enable either individualized play, and then usually they come up with some kind of bonus to your character's power so that it scales in properly with enemies that were written for groups. Or it comes in with certain instructions for what to add on top of your character so that they are not completely out of their depth. But if you play it duo play, it's just like playing with a small party, and then you're, just kind of structuring the game for less people, is what it usually comes out to, like, balancing. And I think that's a big reason. And I mentioned this without the context of knowing a solo mode was coming. But this is why I think that knowing there is an enemy type that we have in elf lines, at least, and this means you could extrapolate this out to mean that it would work in regular Cyberpunk as well. The fact that we now have gonk level enemies where you hit them once through their armor and they're dead will be awesome for solo modes. Because now you can have just as large a number of adversaries on the board and not have that feel like you're just going to get gunned down in like 5 seconds because you're outnumbered. Let's see. For me, I'd say he's the most important NPC. I don't see that being possible with a solo version. Why not? Would be my question in return. Why isn't that possible? Like, I don't know, Diamond, do you have a thought on, like, do you ever feel like when you've tried solo modes, NPCs or the environment are drastically altered for not having that?
I mean, to a degree, there will always be that difference between, playing with a GM and playing with yourself. And when you are playing by yourself, god damn it. Anyway, I'm sorry. When you are playing, solo mode, this is where you have to push on your creative freedoms to decide how, depending on what the game engine has to say, it's on you to continue to paint the rest of the picture.
Sure, like it is. But I don't think that is.
But it wouldn't be out of the question either that, if your this engine runs like with say Street Stories or Hope Reborn, you don't lose that flavor of the city.
So we know Peter Norton is the one who they're developing it in collaboration with, who has done the Hollow Pond solo saga. So a seasoned developer of solo content, which is definitely what you want, obviously, for something like this. And so ultimately, though, I would say, like in Dragonbane, when I've run that for either just myself or with Connor as like a duo, essentially, we have typically had no real issue with making the world still feel there, like it's the world. And the supplement itself does do some things to enable that. You can always still roll like life paths and stuff like that for entities beyond your character, right? Like if you're a GM, this is something I've mentioned to do before, and I think we've even talked about it on the podcast. If you're writing enemies and they're supposed to be like longer term enemies than like one session, and some of these, even if you are only using them for one session, you might still do this just to get clarity on who they are and why they're there. You could roll them a life path and see like what has brought them here, right? And I would say that if you do that for a lot of your adversaries and you season the world that way, you can come up with a pretty good replication of like what a GM would present as Night City. Because the reality is my Night City and Diamond's Night City are going to look different just because we're different GMs. And this is true that both of our Night Cities are going to look a little different. Like mine's probably going to look closer, but it's still going to be different from Phantom's Night City, because he's the one who taught me the game. So a lot of what I do, even now, emulates pretty heavily the way I learned the game from him. But it very much does have its own kind of nuances and things that I bring to that he wouldn't, right? And so that is, the reality is that when you're your own GM, which is kind of what solo mode enables you to do, right? When you're your own GM, you get to decide what is there for Night City. And we will talk a little more about, because this is a good segue for a little bit from now when we dive into the second half of our episode where we are talking about that book. Because Night City 2045 is another one that a lot of people are mixed on at the moment. They're not sure about it. And we're going to talk about why we're excited about that one as well. Because genuinely, I think both of us are deeply excited about both of these releases. Not just as a way to bring new people into the game, because both of these will help do that, but also for our own use. Like, I'm going to get a copy of solo mode as soon as I can get one. And I'm sure Diamond is going to do the same. Because it is something where, like, we want to know what players are seeing when they jump into the game. And we want to know, hey, are there useful tools in here for us? Because everything is useful. This is why I've said Elflines Online. All of those DLCs are, like, we've seen this happen before, where pretty shortly after they drop, there are elements you could see echoing off of them that are, like, useful in the broader context of Cyberpunk. And it's almost like they're being beta tested there. We've seen that a couple times now. And so I'm always looking at that and saying, how could I use that as a tool? Rather than writing it off as, it's just a stupid mini game.
PWB. Solo mode, they're announcing it's going to be somewhere in late summer, early fall. So I'm saying it's probably going to be September when it drops.
Yeah. September seems most likely. It's probably either September or early October. Like, I would say that's pretty accurate as a potential release window. Yeah, I think we're getting there pretty soon. Like, that based on the way that they wrote their Gen Con update, it very much seems like that is the next thing in the pipeline for us. So yeah, and I mean, most solo modes aren't very long, right? They're pretty short documents. So unless, because this is the other thing I was going to say about having Night City that feels very alive in your game. There's a great supplement out there called Augmented Reality. And if you guys have not, if you guys have never used or heard of Augmented Reality, this is why I think it's so cool. The book, I have the PDF version, but I believe they now have a POD version of this as well on drive-thru. That wasn't there when I first bought this back in like 2020. But what it is effectively, it's a city builder. So you have a bunch of Roll 100 tables in this book that let you get as, like, generalized or as, like, nuanced a framework as you need for a block of the city. And you can build it up for yourself by going through that, set of Roll 100 tables. And the supplement on drive-thru is maybe $2 or $3. It's cheap. Real cheap. And so, like, if you do that, though, you already can start building a city for yourself or part of the district. Like, if you're like, I would normally ask a GM this question, but I need to know, down the block, what is there? Well, let's roll a couple of 100 tables here. And in 5 minutes, you've got a pretty realized streetway figured out for yourself of, like, okay, on the left side of the street, we've got a pharmacy, we've got a video rental store, we've got a small coffee shop down that way, and on the right side, we've got a large office complex that takes up the whole building, or the whole block going down that side of things with a parking garage on the other side. Voila, you have your street, and that took us like 5 minutes of 100 tables. If you really want to get, like, nitpicky about, like, okay, how does the air smell here? Is it clean? Is it smog filled? Is it whatever? There are tables for that too. So that's where you start looking at supplements like that. I'll be curious to see if maybe solo mode incorporates elements of that as well, because I think that those are very useful things to have. What's the supplement again? So the supplement that I'm talking about is augmented reality. It's not a Cyberpunk official supplement. It's third party. I believe it's by Geist Hack Games. If you give me 2 seconds, I can look it up for you guys and post a link in chat. But it's very, very, very cool. And they also have a drone supplement as well that they made. I believe it's called Remote Control. But yeah, it's okay. Augmented reality. Yeah, it's $2. Holistic city kit for Cyberpunk games. So if you guys want to check it out, that's the link for where you can get it on Drive-Thru RPG. The PDF is literally $2. The softcover black and white book is $7. And actually, if you want the PDF and the book, it's the same as just buying the book straight away. So you can literally get the hardcover, or like the hard copy, I should say. It's a softcover book, but a hard copy of the book with the PDF for the same price as just buying the book itself outright. And the book itself is pretty helpful because the spreads actually let you just throw dice onto it, and it rolls 2 D100 tables for you essentially at the same time, which is really, really cool. But yeah, that's something I'd highly recommend. It's very, very useful.
Also on top of that, something else that I do look forward to with solo mode, it does allow for you to get comfortable with the setting. For those of you guys that might be, getting ready to get involved with Cyberpunk, this is a good way to get, comfortable with what you're going to be dealing with when you get to an actual table.
Yeah.
Given there might have to be some adjustments made, but I see this as a good way to, build that character, find what you're looking for in the game, and have a little experience going in.
Yeah. Well, you're right. This is also a good test bench. I agree entirely. If you aren't sure if your character concept is going to work, or you want to test it on your own first, this is going to be a great way to do that and see, does it work the way I think it will? And if it does, great. That's awesome. But it lets you litmus test some of that. And obviously some character archetypes are going to work better in a group setting than they will in a solo setting. That there's also truth to that as well. So it maybe isn't the only thing I would do if that were, something I was intrigued by, using it that way. But it is a tool that you could use to do that. And I do like that thinking as well.
All right. I guess other than that, right now, we don't really have much more information coming off of solo mode.
Not yet.
But I'm also looking to possibly get Peter on the show, so that way we can talk a little bit more about solo games and how to make it work. And possibly we could learn a little bit more about how to make your own bootlegs for, bootlegs, supplements, aids to solo play.
Yeah, I would just say supplements, because that's kind of what they are. Even if they're third-party supplements, they're supplements.
Okay.
Yeah, because ultimately, and I to kind of hammer the point home, solo modes are an accessibility tool. They are useful. They have a lot of uses beyond just being a way for you to play the game. They are useful for a variety of other reasons that once you look at it and try it and see what's all in there, and I'm sure, when it comes out, Diamond and I are going to both probably be making videos about it, and we'll talk about it together here on the podcast, because this is kind of big in my mind. because I've run one-on-one games of Cyberpunk to teach people before. It's just not the same. It's just not the same as if you were to have a properly tailored experience that can do that. And having a solo mode is way better than that in my mind.
I guess I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's like really anything else that we have for this, because I think we've pretty well covered it. And I guess as like, you know, my call out to the community here, just before you look at something, just be like, well, why the fuck are you making this? This doesn't help me at all. This is something that will help really everyone in the long run. And don't sneeze on something, or like, what is it? Don't shit on something until you've given it a good hard look.
Right.
Because I've seen some people that just, they've looked at supplements and just be like, well, this is fucking stupid. This would never show up in my game. And then they're just like, well, where the hell did that piece of cyberware come from? And it's just like, well, it came from that one DLC that you didn't look at.
Right. And this is why I'm like, in my mind, a lot of the time.
This isn't me, dogging on the community or anything, but it's just like, at the same time, look at it all.
Yeah. Well, and I would agree from that standpoint. It's look at the broader implications of what something is bringing to the table, because you might be surprised to find, like, and this is why I've said this applies most commonly in my games through the Elflines DLCs. There's so many good ideas for the game at large that are presented in these mini game DLCs potentially, that you never need to work with the mini game. You never need to associate with it. You never need to mess around with it. But if you read between the lines and go a little bit beyond what the written intent of it is, you'll see other stuff there that is equally interesting. For example, let me just throw one out there at you guys that is maybe not as obvious, because I've already talked about the Gonk level enemies from ELO. I've talked about in previous episodes why miasmatasms are one of the most exciting things we've gotten in the game for a while where net running is concerned. I'll give you one more. The range tables for other ranges of weapons. What if you created a novel weapon that used some of those ranges instead because it worked similar to how the spell works in yellow? What then? And so this is where I'm saying, like, don't take everything on face value and saying, well, that's an yellow supplement, I would never use it. That's a, supplement for, stickball, I would never use stickball. That's skating and bikes. I don't like skates. I don't like bikes. But one of these days, you might come into the game and realize, oh, wait, there's a rule in one of these supplements for handling exactly what I've just come across. Lo and behold, I know what the supplement is. I can just pull it up real quick, check the rule, and all of a sudden we've got a way to arbitrate a scenario that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And that's what some of those DLCs are giving you. Like, if someone's skating off the back, because this happened at Gen Con in one of the games that was being run, one of Phantom's players was skating behind a car on a piece of debris. And we have the skating rules, so he could do all of that, but even though it wasn't written into the adventure, but he's got rules for it. We know what those are. And because of that, we could just use them. And so it didn't matter that when they came out, we're like, oh man, well, who'd skateboard in Cyberpunk? Or who would ride a bike in Cyberpunk? The fact is, sometimes you will, and when you do, lo and behold, we have rules for them. And that's really cool.
There's a whole fucking group out of the Haywood Industrial Zone that's their primary form of transportation is, bikes, skateboards, roller skates, the fixies.
Yep. It's true. It's very true.
And like look at solo play. No, we don't know how much this is going to cost. I'd say
I wouldn't see it costing more than a typical interface volume, and it's probably going to be less.
I'd say probably at best 15 to 20.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's probably that would be like, and I would say that that's on the high end, and that would be if it includes a bunch of extra stuff in it that makes it work like augmented reality as like a world building supplement, and that could be very useful for GMs then as well. Even if it doesn't though, like I could see somewhere between 5 and 10 if it doesn't have a ton of those tools, and that I would think would be very fair. I don't think it's going to cost more than the data pack or an interface volume though, and that's on the high end. I think it's going to be less than those.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but I think we've hit the bottom of the barrel on this topic.
No, I feel pretty good about that. So as always, guys, if you are listening to this on YouTube specifically, down below me there is a description box. In there you can find the link to Diamond's half of this episode. Of course, if you are watching us live or if you're watching us through Spotify, just stick around. We will be coming right back at you with the second half of the episode, where this week we're going to be talking about Night City 2045 and why that is so exciting for us. So if you have not already watched that half of the episode on YouTube, we will see you over there. Otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon wherever in the world. Stay healthy, stay safe. Until the next time, guys. Peace.